Spent the last few videos talking about Apple, which, of course, and I thought this was pretty interesting because things definitely across the pond are different than they are here in the States. And here, EU lawmakers push for all Android phones to copy the Pixel 6's 5 years of updates. I I have mixed feelings about that. I really do. I mean, from a business standpoint, it's one thing. Is from a consumer standpoint, it's another. From a environmental standpoint, that's another. And for a lover of technology, that's another. So, I mean, there are a lot of sentiments that go into that because it's not as easy as just saying, "Well, we're going to support stuff for 6 years," and you're like, "Okay, what exactly does that mean?" So, and I hopefully I'll remember all of those examples that I just gave. But business. All right. So I'm thinking I'm a phone manufacturer. I don't have a developed ecosystem. The way that I make money is by selling you phones. It takes time and resources and other resources to support phones in general, like to make them, but then to continue to support them. It takes time and resources. And if I'm trying to support phones for 6 years, that means at any given time, depending on how many models I release each year, I might be supporting 6 phones. I might be supporting 18 phones. That's a lot to actually support for that particular time, that particular amount of time, especially when you aren't in control of a lot of the stuff. So you might have the hardware, but you aren't in control of the software. You have to work with carriers to make sure that stuff is validated on whatever networks. Like it's a lot of work to make that actually work. And yeah, Apple does it. We know Apple does it, but they control just about everything. And at this point, they're so strong that I think that the carriers bow down to them. So it's like, well, they do what they want to do, and they can get away with it. But for everybody else who needs to work with people and who needs to actually sell you phones more so than get you in the ecosystem and have you subscribe to various services, they need to sell phones every year and they don't want you keeping a phone for 6 years. So, from a business standpoint, it would be problematic because that could just lead to phones being more expensive because they could easily say, well, we don't sell as many as we used to. So, to make sure we're generating the revenue that we need to generate, then we're just going to start increasing the price of phones. So, that's definitely one way of looking at it. So then I also said from a consumer standpoint, like, yeah, surface level, that would be cool. Oh, yeah, because you could say, well, I've bought a new phone and it's going to continue to get support for the next 5 or 6 years. Or you might say, well, I bought this used phone that's already 2 years old, but I know it's going to continue to get support for the next, 3 to 4 or 5 years, depending on when you bought it. So surface level as a consumer, pretty cool. All right. From an environmental standpoint, yeah, hopefully that would mean less phones in landfills or the cost and the resources required to recycle them. Maybe it would decrease that. So, you know, I could see that's kind of a cool thing. But the last one I think I only said four, was as a lover of technology, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Because what's going to happen if this became, you know, the way of the land, and depending on how the law is actually written, you might say, oh, well, we'll support that phone for 6 years. But there's like, for whatever's happening right now with some of this stuff, like there's no real verbiage of you have to offer monthly security updates. It could be just, all right, we're going to offer security updates once a year or something. Or, yeah, we'll update your phone when that version of Android comes out. And that's it. I mean, like, who knows exactly what would go into whatever type of law they're trying to write. And, no offense to lawmakers, but they're probably not the best qualified to propose some of these things. And I know that they should have people on their staffs who are more knowledgeable about it. But then, at least here, and I don't know about things over there, but then you have lobbyists who get into the act of lawmaking themselves. So it's like, well, and then so yeah, it just seems like the consumer loses, the businesses win, the government thinks that they're doing something that appeases, both parties or whatever. And then those tech enthusiasts sometimes are disappointed and sometimes they aren't. So yeah, it's sometimes a win-win. Well, it's almost never a win-win. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's a win-lose. And I feel like sometimes it's a lose-lose, where in this situation, if this happens, like, yeah, the manufacturer is going to have to support something longer when they shouldn't, and then the consumer might get a graded experience. And that actually makes me think of, okay, let's say that they are, half-assing it. You, the consumer, are like, oh yeah, this phone's only 4 or 5 years old. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's ancient when it comes to technology. So would you even want a phone that is that old? And I know I have a Pixel 6 right now. And yeah, if Google decides to support it for 6 years, if I still have that Pixel 6 in what, 2028, I'd be shocked at myself, or really 2027 since it came out last year. Yeah, I'd be shocked at myself. And if I still have it, I'll turn it on and I'll be like, oh, this is what I was using back in 2022. And I kind of look back at my Pixel 2 right now that I still have in my possession, or my Sony Xperia X Compact. I would, even though I like the size of the phone, I am quite confident that if somebody were to able to get Android 12 or 13 running on it, it wouldn't be a good experience, because at that point we're talking about hardware limitations too. That yes, what we have learned or what they have learned from a hardware engineering standpoint, and ways to optimize that, the software is probably going to align with that or utilize things that newer hardwares have. So then, yeah, you might get an older phone that technically is supported, but yeah, just the overall user experience just isn't that great. And with the iPhone, they're good enough to the point where, yeah, a 4 or 5 year old iPhone is still good. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just a hard stop right there, that the A series chips that are in those phones are just that good, and their software optimization is that good that they're able to provide that support for that long, and the user still gets a pretty good experience. I mean, you'll have to replace your battery, which you have to go through Apple or an authorized Apple repair place to do it. But overall, it's a good experience. Uh-oh. Oh yeah. I'm gonna pause this. I have a FedEx package coming. All right, package arrived. Um, so yeah, what I was just getting at is, yeah, just because you do it for longer doesn't mean that it's necessarily better for anybody. More work for the manufacturer, less revenue because they might end up selling less phones when that's the way that they primarily make money. And then from the consumer standpoint, then yeah, just the overall experience. Older phones just might not be that good when trying to run modern software. And we got a few things in here that I thought were pretty interesting. So yeah, like right now, some phone vendors will support their phone for 2 to 3 years. Some one, really, because again, they need to sell more phones, so you get the new one. Um, let's see, and then of course we have the differences between operating system updates or upgrades and security updates. Those are not one and the same. So yeah, we could say, all right, well, we're going to keep your phone on Android, whatever, but yeah, we'll give you the monthly software updates, but you're not going to get any overall user experience updates, like going from Android 12 to 13 or 13 to 14 or whatever. Like right now, the Microsoft Surface Duo, I believe, is still running Android 11. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still running Android 11. And but I will say, in terms of security updates, I think, well, I mean, I've sold it now, but when I had it, it was pretty much on par with, whatever month. It wasn't as fast as the Pixel release and stuff, but it definitely um, was close to being as up to date as it possibly could. And one thing, where was it? Um, yeah, talking about making sure that you're able to get repair services, professional. I mean, yeah, like that's important. Being able to have the parts available for some of these older phones. And I really, I don't know what the solution is, to be honest with you, because part of me thinks that, yeah, making things more repairable is the solution. Are people gonna want to repair them? Maybe, or, are they going to want to take it to a repair shop to get it repaired? Maybe, or are they just, regardless of whatever rules or laws are in place, are they just going to want to buy the new thing? Because at some point you're just like, you know what, I've had this for a while. Maybe it's just time to get something new. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see, the numbers on, okay, as of right now, like in 2022, how many phones are still on the market that are 3 or 4 years, let's say 4 years old. And of course you might say, well, if the phones were supported longer, maybe more phones would be on the market that are that old. And you wouldn't be wrong in saying that there would definitely be some people who've decided to keep their phones a little bit longer because they're supported longer. But that, what percentage of that would that be? Because I feel a lot of people after 2 or 3 years, it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to go get something else, because software changes. So software gets better, hardware gets better, and then you're like, well, I just want something that's better than what I currently have, and there's nothing wrong with that. So making the parts available for old phones, cool. For some people, it definitely would help. For other people, they're like, well, no, I'm just not keeping a phone that long anyway, so why would I care? Um, this is interesting. Yeah, standards for battery longevity, or bringing back easily replaceable batteries, which they're never going to do that. That would pretty much get rid of any type of water resistance, which, yeah, because, yeah, I mean, I was trying to think, well, maybe they can make, a line of phone. No, no. I mean, if they were like $100, yeah, like, you're not going to make a phone that is this El Cheapo whatever, and then also support it for 6 years. No, that's just not going to work. Talking about battery claims, this was interesting that Germany was even pushing last year for smartphones to be supported for 7 years after launch. Why? Like, that's just stupid. No, it is. What are we in 2022? So let's count backwards in terms of phones, which on the iOS side, that's different, but still, um, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10s, 10, uh, but slash 8, so that came out the same year, 7, 6s. So right there, that is fine, but I think we'd have to stop at the 7, because I don't think the 6S isn't supported anymore. So trying to get things on par with Apple, which, that was weird, because that 6S should have died off a while ago, and they just didn't. And I don't know if they were establishing a new norm, which maybe that's what they were doing. And I don't know if that's when they switched over to 64-bit. I feel like the 6 was 64. I don't know. But 7 years on the Android side is not going to be the same as 7 years on the iOS side. And that's just the nature of how things are. So I don't even think I'd want that. I mean, we're talking the Galaxy S. I mean, what are we at, the 22 right now? So 21, 20, and then we jump back down to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So the Galaxy S6, no. Like, my friend, she has a Galaxy S6 that she hated back then, and regardless of her opinion, I remember what that interface is like, and I remember, it was fine for then, but I would not want to use that today. So 7 years, no, that is just stupid. And that's pretty much it. But, there's more stuff in the article. But yeah, I definitely have mixed feelings about it. But I think it's, unless we get to the point where Android phones, or phones that run Android, operate the exact same way that computers that run Microsoft Windows operate, then it's just not going to work. Like, yeah, if I could, just turn on a phone, and even if I had to use a computer, like, oh, let me go to, android.com and download Android and be able to pull the required drivers that I need for my particular device, and then, run the command line, or, it, of course, create some type of nice user interface. If it worked that way, then I'd be like, you know what, that might not be a bad idea. Like, maybe I complained about how big phones have gotten. Yeah, maybe I'd still would rock one of my older, slower phones. Um, but yeah, the way that things operate now, what they're asking isn't a good idea. You'd have to fundamentally change the way that Android works, in order for it to be an actual good experience for the user.